My name is Brielle Maddox, and for as long as I can remember, my family treated me like someone who would turn out fine no matter what. That was the unspoken rule in our house. The air we breathed. My sister, Ariana, absorbed every bit of attention the way a star pulls the planets into its orbit. I learned early that the best way to survive was to stay quiet. I still remember one evening when we were teenagers. Ariana burst into the kitchen waving a report card like it was a Nobel Prize. "Dad, look, I passed chemistry," she said, breathless with triumph. My father, Stephen, dropped his newspaper, stood up, and wrapped her in a hug like she had been rescued from a burning building. "Sweetheart, this is fantastic. Let's go out for dinner. You deserve it." I had brought home a perfect score on my own test that same day. I placed the paper on the table near him, hoping for something, anything. He glanced at it only long enough to nod. "Good work, Brielle," he said, already turning back to Ariana. "Now, what restaurant are you in the mood for tonight?" My mother, Miranda, chimed in with a bright smile toward my sister. "Someplace nice." She worked hard. I stood there in the doorway, the distance between us long and familiar. Aunt Celeste, who had dropped by that evening, caught my eye across the room. She did not say a word, but she held my gaze for one extra beat, and that single look told me she saw the imbalance everyone else pretended not to notice. Mom would say, "Ariana just needs a little more support. You're the strong one." Dad would add, "You manage so well, Brielle. You always have." Those words should have felt like praise. Instead, they wrapped around me like a reminder no matter what Ariana did, she would be protected. No matter what I did, I would be fine on my own. Growing up in that house taught me something important, the difference between being loved and being depended upon. One looks warm from the outside, the other feels like being used as scaffolding. If you're still with me, stay close. I tell these stories because someone out there has lived this same quiet imbalance in their own home. And if you want to follow what happened the night everything finally snapped for me, make sure you stick with me through each chapter. This one only gets heavier from here. The imbalance in our house was never announced, but it shaped everything we did. It lived in the way my parents spoke, the decisions they made, the silences they allowed to stretch. Ariana received support the way other people received oxygen constantly, invisibly, without ever needing to think about it. One afternoon, when we were still in high school, Ariana walked into the living room with her cheer practice form. She dropped it on the table in front of my mother like it was a legal emergency. "Mom, I need new uniforms. Coach said the order has to be in by tomorrow or I can't compete," she said, voice trembling just enough to trigger sympathy. My mother picked up the form instantly. "Sweetheart, I will handle it right now. Do you like the navy one or the teal one? We can get both." Ariana nodded, already certain. I stepped into the room holding a permission slip of my own. "Mom, I need a fee for the science club trip next month. Only if we can afford it. Though, it is not." Before I could finish, my father spoke from the couch. "Brielle, is this necessary? You already have plenty going on. Maybe sit this one out." Ariana did not even look at me. She always wants something when I need something. She muttered, "Just loud enough." My mother sighed. "Not everything needs to be a competition. Brielle, let your sister focus. She just signed up for uniforms that cost more than my entire trip," I said quietly. My father lowered his newspaper. "And Ariana needs them. You know she has so much on her plate." I wanted to ask what exactly was on that plate, because from where I stood, it looked like dessert. But I swallowed the words. Swallowing had become second nature. Later that night, Aunt Celeste stopped by again to drop off some holiday cookies. As she handed me the box, she glanced at my untouched permission slip on the counter. "Did you get what you needed?" she asked softly. I shook my head. "It is fine. They think the trip is extra." Celeste studied my face. "Extra for who?" Her voice was calm, but the question carried weight. Before I could respond, my mother called from the kitchen. "Celeste, come help me show Ariana her new uniform options." Celeste exhaled once, gently touched my arm, and walked away. That was her version of outrage, quiet, restrained, but unmistakable. Over time, these moments stacked on top of one another. Not loud, not dramatic, but constant. And constant wounds leave the deepest marks. I moved out a week after I turned 18. No celebration, no speech, not even a tense goodbye. I packed 2 suitcases, folded my acceptance letter to Austin Community College into my pocket, and walked downstairs. My mother looked up from her phone. "You are leaving today." "Already, I start orientation tomorrow." I said, "I told you last month." Ariana stretched on the couch, barely glancing at me. "You are really doing the whole community college thing? That is practical, I guess." My father folded his arms. "You know we cannot help you with rent or tuition. Things are tight right now." They were never tight for Ariana, but I nodded anyway. "I am not asking." Something flickered across his face. Guilt or relief. Or both. "Well," he said, "good luck out there." I waited for more. Nothing came. As I reached the door, Aunt Celeste stepped inside holding a bag of groceries. She froze when she saw my suitcases. "You are heading out, I have to," I said. My voice stayed steady, but my hands weren't. Celeste set the bag down and pulled me into a quick, firm hug. "Call me if you need anything at all." My mother called out from the kitchen. "Celeste, ask if she left the spare key on the counter." I placed the key down. The metal clinked louder than it should have. Outside, the sun felt too bright. Celeste followed me onto the porch. "Brielle," she said quietly, as if trying not to disturb the air around us, "there is nothing wrong with wanting more than they ever expected from you." I swallowed hard. Wanting more is the only thing I am sure I am allowed. She squeezed my hand. "Then go take it." That night, in my tiny room at the student housing complex, I ate a microwave burrito and listened to the muffled lives of strangers through the thin walls. No one asked me for anything. No one compared me to anyone else. It was the smallest space I had ever lived in, and somehow it was the first place that felt like it belonged to me. I lay down on the stiff mattress, staring at the ceiling, letting the quiet settle over me not as punishment this time, but as permission. Working nights at the logistics center in Austin was supposed to be temporary, a paycheck, nothing more. But it became the place where the pieces of my future quietly rearranged themselves. Most nights were the same. Phones ringing, drivers frustrated, boxes lost somewhere between here and San Marcos. I learned quickly that chaos was not an accident, it was a system breaking in slow motion. One night, around 2 a.m, a driver named Joel slammed his clipboard on the counter. "The routing is wrong again." Third time tonight, "Someone up there needs to fix their brain." I glanced at the messy printout. It is not someone's brain. It is the software. "The software?" Joel laughed sharply. "Then tell the software it owes me 2 extra hours of sleep." I stayed after my shift ended, staring at the outdated tracking system on the monitor. Lines of half-broken code blinked like they were asking for rescue. I whispered to myself, "This could work so much better." I borrowed a programming textbook from the warehouse break room left behind by someone who quit months earlier and brought it home. I read until sunrise, the words blurring but refusing to let go of me. Weeks later, when I mentioned the idea to my supervisor, he barely looked up. "You want to rebuild a routing system," he said. "That is cute. Brielle, I want to test something," I answered, "just to see if it works." He chuckled. "Sure, knock yourself out. But do not expect anyone up the chain to care." Fine. I would build it for me. I worked 3 jobs and still found hours to code. Some nights, when exhaustion pressed too hard, I whispered agreements to myself: one more function, one more line, one more test. Other nights, Failing code stung more than anything my family had ever said. During Thanksgiving break, Ariana called. "Mom wants to know if you are coming home." She said, "I have shifts." I replied, "You always have shifts." She sighed, bored already. "They think it is strange, you being so obsessed with whatever this is. They do not need to understand it," I said. She paused. "You are still doing that tech thing. Mom says it is a phase. A phase. 4 years of studying until my eyes burned. 4 years of building prototypes in a dim apartment I barely afforded. Tell her I said hello," I said, and hung up. By the end of the 4th year, I had something real, a prototype that fixed the very problems everyone at the warehouse complained about. I named it Maddox Flow Systems, partly out of defiance, partly because I refused to let the family name belong only to the people who never believed in me. When the first small business in Round Rock agreed to try my system, I sat alone in my apartment and let myself breathe for a full minute. It was not pride. It was proof soft, quiet, undeniable that I was building a future no one saw coming. Growth did not arrive with fanfare. It showed up in small ways: an email from a warehouse in San Marcos asking for a demo, a courier service in Dallas curious about my pilot results, a regional manager who said, "Your system saved us 80 hours last month." What else can it do by then? Maddox Flow had 9 paying clients. I still coded alone at my dining table, drinking cheap coffee and convincing myself that burnout was just a temporary side effect of ambition. One afternoon, during a quick break between shifts, my phone rang. A voice introduced himself carefully. "This is Daniel from FleetCore Technologies in Denver. We saw your routing optimization results. Would you be open to a meeting?" I kept my tone steady. "Yes, I would." He paused. "You built this yourself?" "Yes," I said. There was a quiet exhale on the other end. "Then I think we should talk." The first virtual meeting felt surreal. A dozen faces on the screen, all asking questions as if I were someone important. When they asked how big my team was, I answered honestly, "It is just me." I said. A woman named Lila blinked. "You created all of this on your own." "I had to," I replied. The room shifted. Not in pity, something sharper. Respect. Maybe. Weeks passed, every few days. FleetCore requested financial statements, usage reports, error logs, scalability projections. I completed each request alone. Every document, every line, every late-night calculation belonged to me. One evening, as I sat at my tiny desk, Ariana called again. "Mom says you are avoiding us." She said, "I am working." I replied, "You always say that. Dad says you should make time for family. We are all carrying a lot." A bitter laugh almost slipped out. "You are carrying a lot." She ignored the jab. "Just, do not forget where you came from. Brielle." As if I ever could. 2 weeks later, I opened my inbox to find an offer written in restrained corporate language. FleetCore wanted to acquire Maddox Flow Systems for $14.8 million. I read the number once, twice, 3 times. My hands trembled, but the room stayed silent, unchanged. No one was there to see it. I signed the agreement alone in my cramped office. No champagne, no applause. Afterward, I closed my laptop and sat very still. The success did not feel loud. It felt like breathing after years spent underwater, slow, disbelieving, and entirely my own. I drove to my parents' house in San Antonio with the same promise I made myself every year: stay polite, stay calm, stay invisible. It had always worked before. When I walked through the door, Ariana was already in the center of the living room, wrapped in a cream-colored sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent back when I was in college. She waved a champagne flute in the air. Brielle finally arrived. She announced, "Mom, she is here." My mother appeared from the kitchen, smiling tightly. "We started a few minutes ago. Ariana was just telling us about her wellness coaching launch. It is going to be big. Ariana tossed her hair. I already have 12 clients lined up, but Dad says we might refinance the house again so I can upgrade my studio. Lighting is important. My father nodded from his armchair. Anything worth doing is worth doing well. I set my coat on the chair. You refinanced again? Miranda waved a dismissive hand. Do not worry about the details. Ariana needs support right now, my father added. And you, Brielle, you always manage. That is your gift. Aunt Celeste was near the tree, watching quietly. When our eyes met, something in her expression tightened concern, maybe even warning. We moved to the dining room. The table was full, warm, loud, every voice except mine. Ariana held court, explaining how she might expand her business. Maybe rent an entire building downtown if things go right. My mother placed a hand on Ariana's shoulder. Your father and I have talked. We will help you. Of course we will. I picked up my fork. How much help are you talking about? Ariana smirked. Why do you care? You never need anything. The words landed with a sting I should have been used to by now. The conversation rolled on until Celeste put down her glass, turned to me, and spoke with a softness that cut straight through the noise. Brielle, she said, how is work going for you? The entire table went silent. Miranda frowned. Celeste, she is busy with whatever she does. Let Ariana finish. But Celeste kept her gaze on me. Let the girl speak. Ariana blinked, confused. Why? It is not like she has news. I swallowed once. The truth sat in my chest like a stone. The decision to hide it had been mine, but hiding had begun to feel like shrinking, so I said it plainly. I sold my company this quarter. The reaction was immediate. Chairs scraped, breath caught, silverware froze mid-air. My father leaned forward. Sold what company? Maddox Flow Systems, I said. FleetCor Technologies acquired it. How much Ariana demanded. I met her eyes. $14.8 million. The room exploded. Ariana shot up from her chair. You are lying. You sit there with nothing and suddenly you are worth millions. You owe us. My mother slammed her hand on the table. A fair share. Brielle, your sister needs support, and you have been working behind our backs. My father's voice dropped to something cold. In this family, nothing is built alone. You remember that. I pushed my chair back slowly. I did build it alone. Every hour of it. Ariana lunged toward me, tears streaking down her face. You cannot leave me drowning while you sit on all that money. You owe me, Brielle. You owe this family. Celeste stood suddenly. Enough. But Miranda snapped, pointing at me as if I were the problem that had ruined the night. You have benefited from our name your whole life. It is time you give something back. I stared at them all, faces twisted. Not with pride, but hunger, entitlement, rage. In that moment, I understood something simple and devastating. They were never shocked that I succeeded. They were shocked that I succeeded without them. And that was the moment the ground beneath our family finally split. The silence after Christmas did not feel peaceful. It felt staged, like everyone in my family was holding their breath and waiting for me to make the first mistake. I tried to push it away, to focus on the consulting work I still owed FleetCor, but the tension clung to me like static. 3 days after the dinner, I woke to a string of notifications from my bank. At first, I thought they were spam. Then I read them. Unusual login attempt detected. Recovery email changed request submitted. New beneficiary addition denied. Large transfer attempt blocked. I sat up so fast I felt dizzy. I grabbed my phone and called the bank immediately. A woman answered, calm and professional. Thank you for calling Central Texas Federal. How can I assist my account? I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I did not request any of those changes. She asked me to verify information. I did. Then her tone shifted, just slightly. "We flagged several attempts last night," she said. "Someone answered your older security questions correctly." My stomach tightened. "Which questions?" She hesitated. "Your childhood street, your family pet, your elementary school teacher." No one should know those answers except my voice thinned. "Can you see the device location? I can see the IP address," she said. "It traces back to a residential network in San Antonio, my parents' house." My throat closed, but I managed to whisper, "Do not allow any changes without my physical presence." "We already locked the account," she said gently. After the call ended, the room felt too small. I started pacing, forcing myself to breathe. I wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding, but the truth pressed at me like a bruise. Someone in my family had tried to reach into my accounts, not metaphorically, literally. I called Aunt Celeste. "I need to talk to you," I said. She arrived at my apartment an hour later, still wearing her coat. The moment she saw my face, she asked, "What happened?" "They tried to get into my accounts," I said. Someone answered questions only my parents would know. Celeste exhaled slowly. "Brielle, I have proof. I said, logs, timestamps, everything." She sat beside me. "Then you need help beyond me." She was right. That afternoon, I contacted the attorney a mentor had referred months ago, Cameron Delgado. Her voice was steady, clipped, controlled, like someone who had seen this exact situation too many times. "Walk me through everything from the beginning," she said. I gave her the details, every alert, every failed transfer, every clue pointing back to the Maddox home. When I finished, Cameron said, "This was not curiosity. It was an attempt, and attempts escalate." She paused. "You will need a financial specialist and a cybersecurity expert." She connected me with them that same evening: Isaac Vaughn, forensic accountant, Cade Ashton, cybersecurity specialist. Isaac spoke first. "I will build a full timeline of financial behavior. If they have ever accessed your records before, I will find it." Cade added, "And I will pull every available log from your bank's security team. You will know exactly who touched what, and when." Hearing them talk felt surreal, like I had stepped into someone else's crisis. 2 days later, we met again. Cade placed a laptop on the table and turned it toward me. "Here," he said, pointing at a highlighted entry. "This is the device that tried to add a beneficiary. It pinged from a network registered under Stephen Maddox. My father." Isaac slid a folder toward me next. "Your parents have been covering Ariana's debts for years. Credit cards, car payments, a home equity line. They refinanced once, then opened a second credit line. Their finances are unstable." I stared at the numbers. They looked like a long, slow collapse. Isaac tapped the final page. "And after your Christmas announcement, their spending patterns changed. They were preparing for money that was never theirs." Cameron folded her hands. "We are past the point of uncomfortable conversations. This is now a matter of protection. And you have every right to defend what you built." The final line she spoke was soft, but it pierced deeper than the evidence in front of me. People who believe they are entitled to you will always feel robbed when you finally draw a boundary. I sat there, breathing through the shock, the realization settling in pieces. My family had not just wanted a share of my success. They had tried to take it. By the end of the week, Cameron moved from calm guidance to decisive action. She called me early one morning, her voice steady but sharpened by urgency. "We are filing everything today," she said. "I want restrictions on all your financial institutions before noon." I swallowed. "Will they be notified? They will receive formal letters," she replied. "They will know the boundaries now have legal weight." Hearing that word boundaries felt unfamiliar, like she was speaking a language I was only beginning to learn. Later that day, we met at her office. Isaac and Cade were already there. Isaac held a stack of documents. I traced every financial pattern, he said. Your parents' accounts are strained. Ariana's even worse. He pointed to several highlighted lines. She has missed 5 car payments. The home equity line is almost maxed. They have been floating her lifestyle with borrowed money for nearly 4 years. I felt something fold inside me. Not pity recognition. They had never wanted responsibility. They wanted rescue. Cade opened his laptop. I pulled more logs from the bank. There were 3 total attempts to change the beneficiary, all from the same IP address, the one linked to Stephen Maddox. My father's name felt heavier each time they said it. Cameron slid printed letters toward me. These are the formal notices. They clarify that any attempt to access, request, or interfere with your financial information is a violation. Once these go out, the bank will treat any contact from them as fraud. I signed each page. My hand shook, but the signatures stayed sharp. By evening, the impact began to ripple. Ariana called first. I let it ring. She called again, then again, until her name filled the screen. Then a voicemail. What did you do? My card declined at the salon. Mom says you froze everything. Fix it. Brielle. I set the phone down without listening to the rest. 2 hours later, my mother called. Her voice was icy. Your father and I received letters from some attorney claiming we attempted fraud. You need to explain this right now. I kept my tone level. The bank traced the logins to your house. That is impossible, she snapped. We would never. You answered security questions only you could know. For a moment, she was silent. Then she hissed, You think you can accuse us and walk away after everything we gave that company by raising you? You did not build it, I said. You did not help. You ungrateful child, she said. You will ruin this family. We were already ruined, I whispered. She hung up. The next morning, I received 2 messages from Isaac, each one colder than the last. First, the home equity line has been restricted pending review. The bank flagged irregular activity. Second, Ariana's vehicle was repossessed this morning. She likely did not expect it. Later. My phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. When I answered, Ariana's frantic voice erupted through the speaker. I cannot believe you, she sobbed. You are letting them take everything from me. My studio, my car, my life. You spent money you did not have. I said, You have $14.8 million, she screamed. You could save us all. You just do not want to. Her words cracked, raw and furious. I stayed silent. Then she said the line that finally cut the last thread between us. We deserved that money more than you ever did. I ended the call. When I turned around, Cameron was standing in the doorway of my office. She must have arrived while I was on the phone. She studied my face, then said quietly, This is what happens when dependency disguises itself as love. I nodded, breathing through the ache spreading in my chest. Something had broken. Yes, but something else was forming too. A boundary, a line, a future that could no longer be negotiated away. I moved into my new place in Austin on a Tuesday morning, carrying only 6 boxes and a kind of silence I had never owned before. The condo was small but bright, with just enough space for a desk and a sofa. For the first time in my life, I unlocked a door that no one else had a claim to. Aunt Celeste helped me unpack. She folded one of my sweaters and placed it in a drawer, then turned to me with the gentlest look. You did the right thing, she said. I did the necessary thing. I answered. She touched my arm. Sometimes they are the same. My phone buzzed again, another number I did not recognize. I flipped it over without checking. Celeste noticed. Are you going to listen to any of their messages? No, I said. Every word would pull me back. She nodded. Then you keep moving forward. We unpacked in silence for a while. When she finished, she hugged me tightly, the kind of embrace that did not ask for anything in return. Call me if you need company, she said as she left, "and call me even if you do not." When the door closed, I sat on the living room floor surrounded by half-opened boxes. The peace felt strange at first, too wide, too still, but it did not press on me the way my parents' house always had. This quiet made room for me instead of crushing me. That night, I blocked the last of their numbers. My father, my mother, Ariana, the group chat, all of it. My hands trembled afterward, not from fear, but release. I whispered into the empty room, "I am done being the scaffolding." If you have followed my story this far, stay with me. I share these chapters because maybe someone out there is standing where I once stood, half in a family, half erased by it. You are not alone. And if you want to hear what came after the breaking, after the leaving, then keep listening. There is more.